going on, guys? So I was going to put you on the tripod again, but silly me, I have no idea where the rest of the tripod is. I'm missing the little piece that actually hooks it. What I need to do is just buy a freaking Joby tripod so that I can just click off of this Joby onto a big Joby, and then we'll be Joby. Or Jojoby. Or whatever that is. Alright, so what we're doing today, you guys are going to ride around on the cart with me, by the way. This seems to be a pretty halfway decent idea. So if you didn't see yesterday, what we did was all of that. So we got the downpipe done. Now, Tommy called me and he asked me if I would do a few little tidying up things, because I don't know if you guys are aware, but anytime you build a car like this, where you're basically starting from scratch, you've got just hundreds of bolts and fittings and everything else. So yesterday, we started bleeding out the brakes and realized that the calipers were freshly powder coated. Therefore, they didn't have any bleeder screws in them. So we poured in a bunch of brake fluid. Brake fluid ended up on the floor. We had to go get bleeder screws, so we put those in. Then as we were doing it, we noticed that a lot of the brake lines were still loose. So we tightened up all the brake lines. And then we noticed that the two pins that hold the clevis clamps at the pedals are missing. So there's no pin in the brake pedal, there's no pin in the clutch pedal. So in order to fully bleed everything out, we need to put those pins in. So today, basically, what we're going to do is we're just going to go over this thing, because Tommy wants to be able to pick this up and bring it right down to the dyno, have it tuned, and then have it pretty much ready to go with just a few little finishing touches. So I figured what we'd do for him is we'll go through every last little nut and bolt on the bottom side of this car, and we'll make it work. We'll tighten everything up. We'll tighten the things that aren't tightened. We're going to put some cotter pins in some of the ball joint nuts. And just generally, you know, tidy up the little loose ends that are still going on. We already did today, and I didn't film it, but I wanted to make sure that everything was there. We did the full Chase Bays power steering kit, so I hooked up all the lines for that. That's good to go. We're still missing the little clevis clamp that adjusts the power steering pump right up in here, so he's going to have to do that and put the belt on and all that other stuff. But we're going to get done what we can get done with what we have here versus what's at Tommy's shop, because I'm sure you guys are aware Tommy's shop is about an hour and a half away from here. So I would like to try to get as much done as I can here so that when he comes to grab the car, everything's ready to go. He can literally take it across the street to the dyno, get it dynoed, get it tuned, and go from there. So I think what we're going to do is probably... We made sure the rack was tight. There's a couple of bolts that are missing in the rack over here. So I think we're going to go find a couple of 10mm bolts, get the rack done, get the two cotter pins into the ball joints, and we'll go from there. We'll start in the front, we'll move all the way back, we'll go underneath the entire car, make sure everything's tight, tighten up some of the suspension arms, maybe lock down some jam nuts. Even though this thing isn't aligned yet, we'll lock down the jam nuts so they don't rattle loose on the dyno, and then go from there. So, there we go. Alright, so first order of business, let's get the steering shaft all bolted in. I don't know if you guys can see, but it's right up there. Let me bring you in a little bit. Enhance. Enhance. Move back. Enhance. Alright, so we're going to put a bolt in here and a bolt in here to get the steering shaft locked down, so that it doesn't come out at any point in time. That would be unfortunate. And I know a lot of you guys on Tommy's videos saw that these bolts were missing. We'll put these in here temporarily just so that it sucks everything down and everything's tight. I'm sure he's got some nice coated bolts that he'll be putting in here at some point. Take these out, but these were designed for steering shafts, so these are supposed to be here. They are just a hair short, but it'll tighten everything up. There we go. That is done. Unenhance. Alright, so the next step is right up in here. We've got, I don't know how well you guys will be able to see any of this stuff, but we'll give it a shot. And the light wants to do its own thing. Yeah, I'll bring you in this way. So basically what we got is right there. Somewhere? Yes. Right there. There is the nut for the lower control arm ball joint. We're going to put a cotter pin in that. We'll put a cotter pin in the other side. And we'll make that work. You know what? Maybe I'll just tip you guys back a little bit. Ah, yes. There we go. Now you're in frame. Now y'all will be happy. Alright, let's grab some cotter pins. It's nice to have a little kit like so that is just full of different size cotter pins. So we'll get a couple that'll fit through that nut right there. Perfect. Alright. There's the passenger side, well, Japanese driver's side. And then maybe in there, in there. Right, we might have to tap that one in, Ginger, carefully. Alright, so twist that around a little bit. I don't know if you guys can hear what's playing in the background, but if you can, throw a comment down below. What do you think it is? Alright, so we got that. Now let's put a couple in the rear, because I know those are missing. Libertad, libertad. We might get demonetized for this one, but it'll be worth it. Definitely be worth it. Find a couple more of those. A couple of you guys seem to like the new format here, where I'm kind of just mumbling, rambling to you guys with no real end in sight. Which, hey, thank you. I appreciate that. Because there's a lot of rambling that goes on in here. I usually talk to myself, so having you guys to talk to probably going to make things a whole lot easier. And I don't look like a crazy person because I can tell people that I'm listening or talking to all of my loyal subscribers. Alright, so we got that side done. Let's roll over to this side. Oh, of course. That one's got to be the bad one. Guys, when you're doing ball joints, here's just a quick little tip. When you replace the ball joint, if you can, try to orient your cotter pin so that it is not facing the actual hub. You want it kind of side to side versus front to back. Makes life a whole lot easier for the next guy who's got to work on it, aka me usually. So just kind of do that, and yeah, you'll thank yourself, because now we got to get up in there with a pick or something and get that bent back. Need something bigger. Alrighty, so there's that. And now while we're back here, there are so many jam nuts. All these voodoo arms that are on this thing, they have tons and tons of jam nuts on them. Even though this suspension is not even anywhere close to where it should be, we want to just snug these jam nuts down in its current location, because this thing is going to be going on the dyno, and when it's on the dyno, there's going to be a ton of vibration, and we don't want any of these things coming loose. We don't want these arms falling out. We don't want any of that crap to happen, because if that happens, this thing will come sailing off the dyno, and that would be bad for whoever's about to win this beautiful car. So we are going to just take and snug all these jam nuts down. So that nothing falls apart. Alright, so we're going to get all those done. Be right back. Alright, now that we got the rears all snugged up, those are good. We got a couple in the front here that we need to snug up. Right there, more voodoo arms, and we're literally just going to snug these up as best we can here. And then we got a couple of bolts we need to tie up. Ooh, I think we're going to need a bigger wrench. Forgot this is Japanese, we had to go get the metric adjustable. And we're just literally just snugging these things up. Ooh, that's scary. Basically tight, just so that nothing falls apart on the dyno. Because again, that would be horrific for the winner of this amazing vehicle. Which, by the way, if you guys haven't gone to Tommy's website yet, it's just TommyFyeah.com. Get your entries for this thing, because there's some sick parts on this. I'd enter if I could, but I can't. So I won't. Alright, now we got two 14mm bolts up here that we need to tighten up, two on the other side we need to tighten up. And for the most part, I think that that's going to button up the bottom half of this car as far as bolts go. But we shall find out, I'm sure. Alright, there's those two. We got two more on this side. A little bit of paint in that hole. Alright, so those are nice and tight now. Those are tight. Let's just check these two front ones, make sure those are tight. They are now. And we checked all the lower and upper and lower control arm bolts and such yesterday, and those all seem to be good. Subframe bolts are good, motor mount bolts are good. Brake bolts are all good. Nothing seems to be leaking overnight. So I think we're good there. So now what we got to do is we now have to find a couple of hardened pins for the brake pedal and the clutch pedal, because we started bleeding the brakes yesterday, but we couldn't complete it because we don't have those 2 pins. So you physically can't push the pedals right now. They don't full travel. I do have fluid throughout the system. I did vacuum bleed everything, but there's nothing better than actually having somebody in the car pumping the brakes and then you popping the bubbles out of it. So I'm going to try to find some pins. I'll try to bring you guys along inside. I'm going to be up under the dash, so I don't know how much you'll be able to see, but for the most part, everything underneath this is tight. Brake lines are tight, power steering lines are tight, all the bolts are tight, cotter pins are in the lower control arm ball joints, tie rod ends are tight. Everything jam nut wise is snug. So pretty much everything under the car has been tidied up. Things we got to do in the interior: fill the transmission. Oh, you guys keep catching that. We're going to fill the transmission, and I'll do it on camera so that there's evidence. We have to grease up the shifter, make sure that's good to go. We got to install those 2 pins in the brake and clutch pedal, and keep watching the video because we got a little surprise coming at the end. What we're going to do is we're going to move inside the car now. We're going to see if we can find the 2 pins for the pedals, get those all taken care of. Then we got to fill up the transmission, get that taken care of, and then I'll show you guys a little bushing I made for the shifter as well to take up some of the slop in that. And then I'll bring you guys back when we have the interesting stuff that's happening. Alright guys, so now what we're going to do is we're actually going to pull the shifter, we're going to pull the shifter boot, and we're going to pull the actual shifter out so that we can fill this transmission much easier than it would be to try to pump it in from the bottom. This is a pretty common trick that a lot of people do. Now, if your car is all together and you've been driving it, then probably easier just to go get a $5 pump and pump it in from the bottom if you're doing a fluid change because you're already down there. But in this case, we're going to do it through the shifter hole, make things a little bit easier. I don't have a pump currently, mine broke, so we'll get this pumped in. So I'm going to bring you guys down, let you see all the stuff that we have to do to get that done. Alright, now I know it's probably going to be a little difficult to see with this in the way, but we'll start by pulling the shifter knob off. Get that off of there. Then we got to pull this piece out, and just be careful with this. You got to remember this is, 30-year-old plastic, so you can pop it up with your fingernails. I don't recommend using any kind of tools. It's easy just to grab it from the center here in the actual shifter boot location, pull it up, and then once you've pulled the back section up, pull straight back. Once you pull straight back, everything will pop out nice and easily without much energy or difficulty or anything. Now what we're going for, and hopefully we can get a good angle here without the camera going crazy or falling down, which we might be able to get you guys in. Alright, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to pull this ring off here, this rubber, which will expose our Tomei retainer, and we're just going to take the Allen key that I have so graciously already provided, and we will take out the bolts that hold down this retainer. There's one. And yeah, there's supposed to be 4 bolts in this, but there's only 3. So we'll find a 4th one at some point. Alright, now we can lift the shifter straight out. There we go. And now what I'll show you guys is on the shifter, this little ring right here. This is what we machined up a couple of weeks ago. It sits on top of the plastic retainer, and then the Tomei retainer sits on top of that, and it pushes all down into the shifter and keeps everything nice and tight without binding. because if you push too hard on this plastic piece right here, this whole shifter will bind. So it's about a 1/2 millimeter smaller than it needs to be, which gives you a nice crisp shift feel, but it also doesn't lock up. So now what we're going to do is we are literally going to dump our gear oil right down in that there orifice. Let me see if I can get this propped up here. Yeah, that works. And if you guys know me, you know I cannot stomach the smell of gear oil. It makes me so sick. But doing it for you guys. So we'll see if we can get the ultimate pour down. This trans takes 2.5 quarts. Alright, there's one. God, I hate to smell this shit. In my entire automotive career, the only thing that I absolutely cannot stand is the smell of gear oil. Everything else doesn't bother me. This stuff, forget about it. Oops. We made an oopsie. We had an unauthorized glug. It's alright, it'll just go underneath the car, we'll wipe it up. Alrighty, there's 2 stinky oils. And now a 1/2 quart-ish. It's actually 2.55. Alrighty. So now that that is where it needs to be, we'll just clean up our little bit of a mess that we made here. Ugh. I'll smell this for the next 3 days now, just because. Now we can take our shifter and drop that back in place. Now you'll notice on the shifter right here there's grooves on either side. Those grooves line up with the little pins inside the hole down there. And all you have to do is just make sure that you line up that little plastic nub with the hole down here in the shifter, and everything will just kind of drop into place. Just like that. And now before you bolt everything down, give it a quick yeehaw back and forth. Then we'll bolt all this back down. for those of you who have OCD, I see what I did, and I will correct it. Maybe. Nope, you're going to have to deal with it. It's facing you guys. And it's under a rubber boot anyway. Tighten that up. Perfect. Now we'll slip the little rubber condom back on it, which somebody has already cut to gain access, which is pretty typical. And we'll stretch it over the tomei. Make sure that's good. Good there. Now we can put our bezel back on. And again, same way that it came off, not like that, is how it's going to go back on. Slip it down over, pop the top in first. Make sure you push it forward just a hair so it clicks, and then you can snap it in place. Now we'll put our shifter back on. And there you go. Trans is full, shifter's back in, and that is a nice easy way to actually fill your transmission when you don't feel like getting underneath the car. Now, in order to drain your transmission, you had to have been underneath the car, but if you don't want to pump the fluid back in, you can put it in through the shifter location. So, alright, now that we got that done, we are going to find pins for the pedals. We got to get the pedals working so that we can actually bleed the brakes in the clutch. Alright guys, so I know I said in the beginning of the video that there was going to be a big surprise at the end of the video. Well, the big surprise was supposed to be getting the car actually running. Now, I did get the car running, but not on the right ECU. The AEM was supposed to be the one that was going to be in it. AEM's bad, something's wrong with it. So Jimmy came by with the Nismotronic out of his S13 and we put that in. Well, we tried starting it on that and ultimately found a bunch of issues with the wiring harness. Wires were swapped to run on the AEM, so Jimmy swapped those back, and then we found a positive wire in the engine harness that was grounded, that was blowing fuses, so yada yada. There was a whole bunch of stuff going on. Now, there were a few things that I couldn't tidy up until we had the car started, such as bleeding the cooling system. And just like with any other build that is basically a from scratch build, there were issues. We started filling it with coolant, found a coolant leak. Plugged that up, found another coolant leak. Plugged that up. Then we had some wiring issues with the map sensor not reading properly, and you know, just a whole bunch of stuff. And this is pretty normal stuff on a car that's been put together from scratch. It's just, you get it together, you get it started for the first time, and then there is a ton of little nickel and dime stuff that just needs to be taken care of. So basically what Tommy's doing with the car is taking it back to his shop. When he gets back from the open house in Florida, he's going to button up the last little tidbits of it and then bring it back down and have Jamie tune it. So once the car is tuned, it'll be good to go. Everything is pretty much set. Brakes were bled, clutch is bled. If you want to see the car drive under its own power, head over to Tommy's channel. He's got a video of it actually driving under its own power, if you haven't seen that one already. But yeah, so that's where we're at. We did our part. We got everything done. We got the exhaust all fixed up. We got, you know, a few little tidbits done. We got a good majority of the things tightened, all the bolts tightened, fittings tightened, fluids in the car, you name it. We got it done. Now, it's just got that little tiny bit of stuff left to do, and then the car will be mint. So I hope you guys are enjoying these longer videos. I think this is the format that I'm going to go with. The videos are not going to be just 10-minute quick ones. They're going to be a lot longer. Next video, we have a car that we're basically doing a brake job on, a few other odds and ends, so stick around for that, and hope you guys enjoy it. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. No real conclusion to it, which kind of sucks, but if you head over to Tommy's channel, you guys will be able to see the final results of that car. I think the giveaway is lasting another week, so if you haven't gotten your merch yet and gotten your entries into the giveaway, head to TommyFyeah.com, head over to Tommy's channel. He's got a Patreon, so you can go, become one of his Patreons if you'd like. And yeah, stay tuned for more. I will see you guys on the next one. Have a great night.